I strongly believe that all of us need to work on maximizing every element of our life. We are all born with a certain set of skills, talents, strengths, etc. And all of us are born in a particular environment, in a particular context.
Mhm.
Okay. So I think the first thing we have to do is that recognize that we are unique. We are in a particular context, in a particular setting with a particular set of skills. So first of all, our definition of success, our definition of what it means to maximize life has to be uniquely ours.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Payal Nanjiani, and I am so excited for the conversation that we are going to have today around a topic, the unexpected path to success. And to talk about this topic, I have with me none other than Apurva Purohit. Now, if you don't know who Apurva Purohit is, well, I must say you have been living under the rock. Apurva is the ex-president of the Jagran Group and the author of two national best-selling books, Lady, You're Not a Man, and Lady, You're the Boss. Wow. An Indian businesswoman with over 3 decades of experience in the corporate world, Apurva has won multiple business awards and has been named as one of the most powerful women in business as per the India Today Group 2016, 2018, and 2019, and Fortune India 2018, 2019, and 2020. Through her books, Apurva aims to empower women and encourage them to achieve their full potential. Apurva, welcome to this conversation and to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. It is such an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, and it's lovely meeting you. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. So, I was reading about you, and I have something written here that you went from IIM Bangalore all the way to becoming the president of the Jagran Prakashan. So, when you look back, really, how did you really, cross everything and all the challenges and just get to become what you were, or what you are, I should say?
So, Payal, when anybody starts off, I don't think any of us plan our life, right? And things really happen. And in my case, certainly they happen serendipitously. Okay. So when I look back, of course, I can see how certain choices I made, certain opportunities that came my way helped pave the way to where I reached. Okay. But it's only with the telescope of distance can we join the dots. I think when I look back, really, 2-3 things that I would say stand out for me and which make me feel fulfilled. And I think the first thing is that whatever happened in life, some choices I made mindfully, some choices were thrust upon me, some choices, you had no choice. There was just one path of action and you had to just move ahead. I think throughout all these different phases, I did the best I could in those circumstances and what was given to me. Mm-hmm. So, as they say that whether you're a king or a pauper or you're given the same tools and the same bag of mud. It is what you craft out of them that makes your life, right? So I think that's really what happened. And I think the other thing that really I feel proud or happy with is, people ask me, so what makes you feel that you how do you classify that you're a success, etc. I said the only way I classify that I'm a success is that in 32 years I never had to make a CV. All my job changes, career moves, etc. happened because of references, and I think that's the biggest learning, that it's your reputation that drives you. It's not the CV. So I've never mindfully built a CV.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Never built a CV. Wow.
And I think these unexpected, unconventional choices that one made. So I remember when I was in Bangalore, everybody wanted to join a bank. Mm-hmm. Because in 1989, a bank or an MNC was was really
Yeah.
the choice
True.
destination. And I chose to join an advertising industry, which was both low paying. Nobody had heard about. 89 advertising was really not the level that it has reached today. The rest of my batch was very upset with me that why have you picked up a job that is pulling down our average in terms of the salary that you're earning? But I think the unconventional choices finally worked for me.
Wow, I love that word that you just mentioned, unconventional choices. So when it comes to unconventional choices, what, according to you, what are some of the, can you name a couple of those unconventional choices that you had to take, which took you to where you are? And any incidents or any story, anything?
I think the first one I've mentioned. So, a batch in 1989, remember, this is pre-liberalization. So doing an MBA or being an engineer is the only way to get out of a lower middle class upbringing, right? Okay. And everybody's saying, okay, let me finish these 2 years and I will only go for the highest paying job, because that's the reason you did your MBA in the first place, so that you could get a high paying job, right? Yes. And at that moment, I was very clear that brands and creativity and the business of creativity is what excites me. And so I said, no, I want to work in advertising. And I was the only single person out of that batch of 120 who chose this kind of a career path. And I think over a period of time, it worked for me because I ended up being the youngest CEO of my batch. So it worked for me. I think that's one incident. The other, so I didn't chase the money, I didn't chase the designation, I didn't chase the name, the marquee name of a foreign bank or of an MNC. I think the second thing is that, and that happens a lot with women, we know that we have to take a lot of we have to adjust and adapt a lot when there are dual careers at stake. So my husband's career and my career taking off at the same time. And then he had to he changed a job and had to move cities, and I moved along with him. And as a consequence, I went back a couple of steps in my career journey, because the city we moved to didn't have the opportunities that I was looking for. So a lot of women, I think, you would think of that as being a stumbling block in their career and stop working. And I've seen them fall off the cliff as a consequence. I sort of persevered and continued that. So what if it's a lower level job? So what? At least I'm working. At least I'm working. And I think that's the message, especially for women who are listening, that there will come, whether it's the maternity break that you have to take or a husband's transfer, there will come times in your life where your career may end up having to take a back seat, but don't use that as an excuse to give up.
Yes, absolutely. And I can so resonate with you on this one element, Apurva. My life has also been quite a lot moving, and what you just said, just take a step back and then move forward. As long as you're in the game, like you said. So, many people, they give up during their mid-careers, and they feel, things are slowing down. We are not getting to where we want to get. Things are looking hard. And I'm sure your journey from IIMs to just doing exactly what you're doing now hasn't been easy either. Like you said, there have been moves, there have been transfers. You've taken a step back and still continued. So if you had to suggest some tips, of success in the business and the corporate world, what would those tips be from you, Apurva?
So, Payal, when at their mid-career, people start questioning and people start saying that, things are slowing down. I'm not reaching where I wanted to reach or what my aspirations were. And it is so much harder. Of course, it's harder. It is a pyramid at the end of the day. So there will be many more jobs at lower end, at the middle level. And finally, there's just one CEO position in any organization, right? Yes. So it is certainly a pyramid. But I don't think it's as hard. I think people start giving up not because they look at that next ladder as being a very hard ladder. I think people start giving up for 2, 3 reasons. One is that they've run for, if you see the first 15 years or 18 years of anybody's career, we are all running. We are running to buy our first house, pay off the EMI, have the nice car, have a great designation. So at that level, there's a certain sense of burnout that happens, which people don't recognize. That it's not that the next layer is hard or next level is hard. It's just that I'm burnt out. The second thing that happens is that if you worked hard in the first 1.5 decades of your career, more or less you end up achieving the goals that you set out or the goals that you had envisaged. Then suddenly there's a sense of, now I've got what I wanted. Now what? I've achieved my aspirations. And once you've achieved your goal, then what?
Yeah.
So there's a questioning that happens, right? And I think the third thing that happens is because we've run so hard, we've not had taken any moment to pause and ask ourselves some questions. And at this middle life, we suddenly look around, we have a little moment to pause, and maybe we discover that, what we were doing or the career that we had inadvertently chosen is something that we are not enjoying. So
we realize it so late, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it because we've just been running on a treadmill, right? So it's either burnt out, or you've realized that maybe you're in the wrong place, or you've ended up achieving your goals and you don't know what to do next.
That hurts. That really hurts. Oh my God.
So I think these are the reasons rather than the difficulty or the challenges of the next phase. And I think we have to ask ourselves, what do we do? So I keep on telling people that look at this as an opportunity, this plateau in a sense as an opportunity to re-energize, to recharge, and to reinvent.
Okay.
So if you think you're in the right place, you're just getting burnt out, then take some time to do self-care. Take some time off. It's okay. You don't have to feel guilty to take a break. Take some time to work on yourself. I think that's fun. And if you believe that you're not in the right place, then reinvention. So what should I be doing? What ought I be doing? Or if you believe that you've achieved your goals, then this is the right time to then set the base for the next set of goals.
Okay. So, but do you think, Apurva, I just wanted to pause here and ask you, because you said something very interesting. You said, if you're feeling burnt out, then learn how to take a pause and really redirect yourself, reinvent yourself. You have so much of experience now. I'm seeing here. Do you feel like in your 3 decades of work, have you seen people actually taking a step back and re-energizing themselves, reflecting? Or do you feel that, yes, we say these, but people are still in that race to get somewhere? What have you experienced in your real career life?
I think nobody takes pauses mindfully. I don't think anybody pauses mindfully. We are all on a treadmill. We are all running a rat race, and we just keep on plowing ahead. I think the time to reflect, the time to work on ourselves, we don't give, because we are multitasking. We are running from meeting to meeting to meeting. We are running from office to home and back. And then we've got this list of activities. And when we don't have activities, we are on social media, right? Sure. So I don't think we're giving time to, people don't do this mindfully. I'm just hoping that the last 2 years, in a sense, the universe actually forced us to pause.
Yes, right? It has in a big way, yeah.
And I'm hoping that, when we couldn't do it for ourselves, and it was an external reason that made us pause, at least in this 1.5 years, people have taken time off to reflect and ask themselves questions about what are they doing in their lives.
Wow. And have you consciously worked on this in your own career, Apurva? Like, have you consciously ever worked on yourself and really taking that step back and moving ahead?
What I've definitely and consciously worked on is reinventing myself. So I remember, I think Charles Handy once said that, whether you're a brand, whether you're a person, whether it's a career, whether it's an organization, all of us will go through peaks and troughs. And the reinvention lies in when we reinvent ourselves before we hit a peak, not after the peak, because it's very difficult for a brand or a career or a person to reinvent after the peak has been crossed and they're on the downward slope. When you're on your upward slope, recognize that the peak is coming and reinvent. And I think through my career, at least in 3 different occasions, before I was hitting the peak in a particular job or a profile, I chose to move out and reinvent myself. And I think that also requires a lot of courage, because you have to move out of your comfort zone, right? You have to take certain risks, which again, people are unwilling or unable to do.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, how do we do this? How do we reinvent ourselves? And like you said, it's something that you have to step outside of your comfort zone so that you recognize. And I loved that example and the analogy that you gave, that you've got to do it before you reach your peak, because then it's again a downward slope, and that's how everybody's career life is. So that means you have mindfully been at least practicing this reinventing, and it has helped you so much where you are. Wow, that's really awesome. Now, I also have something here which we did not read in your bio. It says that you have been a state level hockey player. Okay, and you played for Tamil Nadu State and the Tamil Nadu University, which tells me that you've been leading a very fulfilling life. It's not work, all the time. So you've also spoken at many times on many occasions on leading a maximizing career life. So how do you do that? How do you really feel fulfilled in your life? How can someone really maximize their career life so that they can also grow in various ways, not necessarily in positions, but just grow even internally and be that impactful leader like you are, Apurva? What would you tell to the listeners?
Payal, the first thing I would say is that you can't have a maximizing career life unless you have a maximizing life per se. So it's about life, and career is just one part of it. And therefore, I strongly believe that all of us need to work on maximizing every element of our life. We are all born with a certain set of skills, talents, strengths, etc. And all of us are born in a particular environment, in a particular context. Okay. So I think the first thing we have to do is that recognize that we are unique. We are in a particular context, in a particular setting with a particular set of skills. So first of all, our definition of success, our definition of what it means to maximize life has to be uniquely ours. It cannot be, I saw my neighbor and that person did this and therefore I need to do this, or I saw my batchmate, or I saw my colleague, because that person has very different is in a very different context with very different skill sets. So why should you emulate, or why should that person emulate your definition of success? I think first of all, the choice of what does a maximum life mean to me should be mine.
True. Yes.
The definition should be mine.
And that's not easily done now, Purva, because most of the time we see others and we are like, oh, I need to catch that path. And I like what you said, our environments are so different, our experiences are different, So I think that's a wonderful thought. Okay, what else? I know you were saying something, but I wanted to hold on to that.
Yeah. So I repeat, because as you rightly said, that's the most difficult thing to do, to be self-aware enough to know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and to be self-confident enough to say, this is my definition of success. I'm going to decide what is success for me. You cannot decide. Father, mother, husband, boss, you cannot decide. I will decide. And that's very, very difficult to do.
And that's what you did, Apurva, because you said that there was an unconventional path, where you were said that it is banks and it is MNCs, and you chose that path, which is good for you. That really shows that whatever you have practiced is what you are sharing so openly with all of us.
Yes, Payal. So I think that is what I would entreat everybody to figure out what is your definition of success. Okay. I think the second thing is that look at different ways of maximizing your life. It's not just career, or it's just not family. It has to be a blend of what makes you happy at home, what makes you fulfilled at work, what are your hobbies, what are your interests, and try to play to all of them. Try to keep them moving. And again, I see this because I work a lot with women. I see this, that, once they get married, they let go of their hobbies, they let go of their interests, and it's just the role that they are playing at home and the working professional role. There is no third role. It's very sad. So that they have no interest left. So I think that is something that you have to continue doing. And I think the third thing to lead a maximizing life, as I said, that till many years are passed, you don't know what choice you made, whether it was a right choice or a wrong choice. You don't know whether the path you chose will work out well eventually or not. So I think the only way to do it is that constantly be the best version of yourself in whatever you are doing. So I remember, when I joined advertising, because there were not many MBAs who joined advertising, there were no training programs as you would see in a bank or an MNC, etc. And when I went to the company that I joined just after passing out, they didn't know what to do with me for the first 2-3 months, which of the so-called training period. So the filmmaker just said, okay, oh, you're working with me for a week. My files are all in disarray. Just do my filing for me. Now I'm an MBA from one of the premier institutes in the country, and this filmmaker saying, put my files in order, make my account statement. But I did it.
You did it.
I did
it. You learned it how to do it.
So I'm now the best filer in the country. So you just said, okay, let me do the best and be the best version of myself in whatever opportunity that comes to me.
And I think that's how anything. Yeah, you did not think whether I should or should not do. And like you said, the ego came that, oh my God, I'm an MBA from IIMs, and what's this going on? So I'm sure that has taught you so much, so many lessons.
Absolutely. And I think 2-3 things. One, no learning ever goes waste. Whatever, it'll come into play somewhere or the other. No effort ever goes waste. Yes, that effort may not translate into result in that particular job, but it will translate into result somewhere else. And I think the third thing that I learned is enjoy the effort, enjoy the process, because 29 days of the month, it's that with the process and the effort is what keeps you going. The output, whether it's in the form of a salary or a promotion or a career enhancement, happens once in a while. Right? So I think that process, and therefore even in my own organizations, I've always taught people that don't look at KRA as an output alone. Look at KRA also as an input. So what are your input KRAs and what are your output KRAs? So through this crisis, people ask me which businesses will survive. So I said, businesses will survive who did their inputs right, who did their processes right through the earlier days, not suddenly somebody who started reinventing themselves during the crisis.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's really very insightful, Apurva. I had never thought of KRAs as, your not just your outputs, but even your inputs. What are you bringing in to achieve that, and then have the process? Because most of the time we do see people that things have changed, there is uncertainty, and then they will just make up everything on the spot, and they will say, okay, now from here, this is where we go. So yeah, you're just so absolutely correct on that. You've also written 2 books. What made you write these 2 books? You have a busy schedule. You're managing so many portfolios, and yet you removed time to write these books. What got you into that?
I also, through my career journey, I kept watching and kept observing this fact that there are many women who are talented, skilled. I mean, today everybody's talking about what women bring to the table as leaders, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 90% of women were giving up in the first 5 or 10 years of their career, right? Because the responsibilities that came with being the primary homemaker, the primary nurturer, was so overwhelming that they couldn't balance or manage both. So the first book I wrote specifically it was directed to young women to tell them you can balance both. You can be successful both at home and at work, provided you adapt, adjust, and achieve, which are the three themes in my first book. That there are certain things that you have
Is
to
the first
understand.
book, Lady, You Are Not a Man? Is that the
Right.
first book? Okay.
That's right. So it was intended for younger women because they were just leaving in droves. They would enter with great enthusiasm. They would come into the workforce with great enthusiasm, but within 5 years leave. So, talking to them how to manage the guilt that accompanies being a young mother, leaving a baby at home and coming into work, the challenges that one faces, especially in countries like India, once you get married and that whole ecosystem changes of in-laws, etc. How do you manage that and yet end up being successful at as a professional? So that was the first book, and I thought, it touched a lot of women. Many women wrote to me saying that this book completely changed my life, so on and so forth. But then I also recognized that even at the slightly senior level, that midlife crisis that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, even at that stage, there are a lot of women who are going through self-doubt, subconscious biases.
Yeah.
So the imposter syndrome that is telling them now you're not good enough to go ahead.
Oh, yes.
This is the peak of your achievement.
True.
So
You've somehow reached here.
yes, somehow reached. Be thankful.
Yeah.
So the second book is intended for the slightly more senior woman who's going through that midlife challenges.
Okay. And do you still see these challenges, like after so many years and we being in the 21st century, so much empowerment, do you still see this struggle with women?
All researchers, Payal, tell us that it will take us 106 more years to achieve equality.
Whoa.
106 more years. So the pace of change is very, very incremental.
Very, yeah.
Yes, of course, many things have changed. Diversity has become a very pertinent issue. It's come at the top of the board table. At boards, people discuss diversity within organizations, which never used to happen 20 years ago.
Right.
But the pyramid, the gender diversity pyramid hasn't changed too dramatically. We still have 3 to 5% women at the top. And that has changed significantly.
You're right. It's a very, very slow change, Apurva. So Apurva, talking with you, it's like, okay, I can ask so many questions because, the flow with which you speak, it's just so natural and you're just sharing so many tips. But I know time is hard on you also right now with your assignments. So tell me, Apurva, if I had to wrap this with a question, you've been in 3 decades of work and you have been a leader in every aspect, in every element. What would be your definition of leadership if there was no Google, if there was no dictionary to fall back upon? How would you define leadership?
So firstly, leadership for me is always been a very practical demonstration. Leadership is about what we do every day of our lives. It's not what we talk or what we write about or we say in our town halls. It's about what we do every day in life. And for me, there are just 2 aspects to leadership. The first one is accountability. So taking accountability for yourself, for the environment around you, being in charge and saying, I am in charge of my life. I am in charge of my career. I am in charge of my household. And because I'm in charge of my organization. I'm in charge of my country. Because I am accountable for my country. Right. I'm accountable for its messes and I will find solutions. So I think being accountable makes you find solutions. So you have to take accountability. And that's the first foremost definition of leadership for me. Taking accountability.
Okay.
And I think the second definition is, or the other aspect really is, how do you impact and make a difference to the people around you? It may be just one person. It may be 100, 1,000, 10,000, ecosystem, country, doesn't matter. How can you impact positively somebody's life? I think that's the second definition.
Wow, those were some really incredible insights, Apurva. It has been such an honor to have you here on this podcast. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. It's been lovely. I mean, I've just felt very comfortable interacting with you, Payal. And thank you so much again for inviting me here.
Thank you. And to all our listeners, please stay in touch with Apurva Purohit and myself on our social media. Until then, this is Payal Nanjiani wishing all of you loads of success in your life. God bless.